we're here at Consensus 2024. I'm Matthew Schutte. I'm here with Josh Sroge from the HBAR Foundation. Josh, tell us a little bit about yourself and the HBAR Foundation.
Well, thanks for having me here. Excited to be here. Wonderful Austin, almost in Houston. It's moving up to Toronto, rumor has it, out to Hong Kong, but Consensus is a great meeting place for so many people. You know, conferences have an interesting dynamic for some of us who've been in the industry a long time. We get to see all the old friends that really you don't get to see in person much. You're seeing them on your display in your home office. So great opportunity for that. Hedera Hashgraph, the protocol, is here, has a large booth. Please visit it. We are the foundation of that protocol. And back up a little on personal history is, you know, I've been in the industry since 2016 now. I feel old. Working with an OG who was using Bitcoin to do repatriation of funds from Colorado to Mexico. People were going through your standard route at Western Union, paying $40, waiting 3 days, whatever it was. And obviously Bitcoin speeds that process. Following that, I worked at ShapeShift for a couple of years with a personal hero, Eric Voorhees. He's here discussing AI at the conference. And then after that, worked for another personal hero, CZ, at Binance US for a couple of years with Catherine Colleen and Brian Brooks. So it's been quite an incredible journey. And following those, took a break. What would be an interesting next move? Been in the exchange world twice, went to the protocol side. You know, one of the four, I consider the four pillars of this economy, as it were: mining, sort of the picks and shovels, and then protocols and exchanges. So the foundation is the foundation arm of Hedera, separate company, separate board, no beneficial owners. We give away money to those who want to build cool things on our digital ledger, or distributed ledger technology, right? We're not a blockchain, we're a hash graph.
Good work if you can get it.
That
whole giving away money thing.
It is. Well, you know, if you're not a fan of sleep and you like 24/7 markets and a bit of adrenaline and a lot of degen energy, this is a great place to be. I will never leave the industry. I mean, truly, I'm nearing the end of my career, right? But the people who are in their 30s and 20s that I work with, you are so lucky this didn't exist, right? Although I did emerge career-wise during the sort of initial .com era, working peripherally with Sun Microsystems in the 90s, putting the dot in .com, perhaps other people remember that. But it's the same kind of feel. I mean, Webvan, people laughed at it back then, burned $1 billion to do what? Deliver groceries? It all makes perfect sense now.
Sure.
It's just kind of early, and I think we're in the same kind of phase here, right? We're early. We're not sure which projects will have traction.
Yeah, now I've known Lehman and the crew over at Hashgraph since I think the day before they first launched or announced in San Francisco at TechCrunch, maybe way back when. Walk us through a little bit. What makes Hashgraph interesting? What kinds of stuff are you guys trying to support with HBAR Foundation, et cetera?
You know, at the risk of
and
talking,
Hedera, sorry, Hashgraph Hedera.
Yeah, it's. I use it all interchangeably. Unfortunately, sure. You know, some of them. Cardano, I think it's more native to talk about the protocol and the coins using the same word, but I interchange them. Lehman and Mats, just ran into them down at the conference floor. Great to see them in person versus the little screen. Why, you know, I'll circle this around, of course, to talk about why did I choose to go to this, you know, that's being the most interesting subject, but then back to the technology. But when I looked at the landscape, I thought after Binance US, I thought I could work pretty much anywhere that would have me. And I looked at the universe of protocols. It turned out I knew someone at Hedera, which is always the helpful end. But the project really appealed to me. I always say it's unique. And I was like, well, they all are, right? You're unique just like everyone else. But obviously, it really is just on a pure technical level, being a hash graph and what Lehman and Mats have created with this. But secondarily, you know, the nature of the governing council, the 32 companies out of 39 that are running validators. You know, it's enterprise, very... You know, in some ways, you could say very controlled because it's semi-permissioned, but not. I mean, you know, it's not centering transactions, right? We have incredibly fast throughput, fast time to settlement, highly secure, highly stable. Yeah, we've had a downtime, right? But you don't need all your body parts to count it like you do with Solana. And nothing against Solana, right? I mean, pump fun. What are the themes of this rally cycle? Meme coins, institutionalization. So, you know, I can't poke too much fun at my friends who are really bullish on Solana, but I am compelled by this protocol, right? It was really a strong argument, like why this one has its own unique sort of niche in this market. And it's going to be a multi-chain world.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about, or for the audience, what are some of the things? This is not so much on the foundation side. I'm going to stick with just the Hedera side of things for just a moment. What are some of the kind of use cases that enterprises and others are being able to pull off with Hedera that they probably can't with the more traditional blockchain approaches?
I love that question. First, I have to figure out how to answer it, but it lets me put in one of my small jokes, which is that about this ecosystem, of which there are quite a few. But the first use case of every token is speculation, and I think the hardest thing is, well, what's the second use case, right? But and then the other joke is when Homer Simpson goes up to space and they need to bring him down, and NASA's sitting in front of all the computers, and the general says, well, can't you use any of these to do something? It's all just for measuring TV ratings. And so I go to these things and I say, well, this is all just to facilitate trading and speculation. That used to be more of the case. Things are transitioning nicely into what we would call actual use cases, right? So the foundation, has been endowed with a grant by the protocol, has a treasury to help fund those use cases from people who come and apply for grants. Please check out our website for the grant application. But one in particular I discussed today with someone, and I'll bring it up here just because it's most present in mind, and that's coupon bureau, right? Bureau. And that is, or just couponing. So if you think about Mondelez, they just recently joined the governing council. I thought, well, why? Oreos? Why are they? What is there? What, Oreos on the blockchain? No, there's a serious use case under there, considering the billions of dollars of fraudulent coupons worldwide that occur, on a regular basis. Mondelez obviously having that retail footprint in foods, there's couponing that occurs. How do we prevent double spend? How do we, instantiate into the coupon redemption process, an ability to prevent double spend, to track, to do provenance, and all these things related that that our chain can support. But why Hedera? Well, time to finality, right? First off, you're not going to sit there and wait for the settlement on a much longer chain to occur. The consensus mechanism is extremely fast. Low cost. Sorry, you're on ETH? Well, that 10-cent coupon is going to cost $3. So it's things of that nature that I think we are optimized for. So not, people think, well, what does enterprise use case mean? And that's something that a retail customer can readily relate to that's actually enterprise at the same time. So that one I'm particularly excited about. Of course, there's a lot. I mean, Karate Combat's here, right? And so that's another exciting thing, another event tonight that I'm hoping to see folks at. But that coupon bureau was hot on the brain.
That's great. Yeah, it feels to me like any situation where your transaction costs are likely to outweigh the value that it is you're trying to recognize, that doesn't make sense. Hedera being a very efficient approach makes it just opens up a bunch of opportunities there, and that being one of them. Tell us a little bit about HBAR Foundation and the things that you guys are up to at the moment.
So the foundation, about almost 3 years old now at this point. I came in about 2.5 years into its life. Very small team. So we try to keep the operational footprint light. So maybe we're touching on 30 people at this point. And what makes it large or small? I do know that other foundations have sizable footprints, but we cover the globe, right? With a few folks in the States, and then a few folks in various countries around the world, so they can be in touch with the local markets on the ground. Sabrina in Singapore, Alex in Germany, et cetera. So those business development folks can have a ground game there and source the new projects, because they don't always come to us. Sometimes we want to go to them. In a multi-chain world, sometimes it isn't we're only building on Hedera and we're only going to use HBAR. It's we're a bridge, or we're looking to multi-chain, and that's, I think, one of the exciting things. Listen, there isn't just the USPS. There's FedEx, DHL, if anyone knows what that is, and UPS, right? Each has their own sort of stamp cost, as it were. What's the gas? By the way, this is how I momize blockchain. My mom.
How you make it understandable for anybody?
How do you explain it to your mom? Yeah. Well, it's like the Postal Service, right? Everyone's carrying information inside a packet. There's a stamp that has to go on it. Those stamp fees go somewhere that supports the network. And so, we're going to have a lot of different delivery systems.
I like that.
We do have that footprint. It's a great organization. I really enjoy the culture.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
Oh man, it's been a great.
Or several other things. We got a little time.
Yeah, no, I know. It's been a great journey in this ecosystem. I mentioned a couple of heroes. CZ and Eric, Arthur. Some of the big names, people I've interacted with. There's the anti-heroes, of course. I interviewed with Sam Bankman-Fried for what I thought was going to be a CFO job for a bit, and met his parents, and then everything blew up. And who knew, right? So I think in this industry, some of the bad players get a lot of press. Some get fair treatment, some get unfair treatment. I worked with Ryan Salem when he was at Circle in 2017. They were our desk. I think the judge was a bit punitive. And I'm sorry to use this as a political platform, and I'm not going into that realm, but just in terms of how the regulatory and judicial system treats some of the participants here. And I think there's been some uneven treatment, and maybe some treatment that feels right-sized. And that's a personal opinion, but I do have my heroes in the industry. I feel people who have propelled it into the national stage, into the international stage. And I appreciate those folks, including everyone in the protocols. We talked about Manson Lehman, but also, Charles at Cardano lives down the block from me. Well, somewhat. He has a farm. It's bigger than mine. but all those folks in Vitalik, of course, and many others, Joe Lubin, people who are really helping in all different ways to move the ecosystem forward. So I appreciate all their efforts. And I'm just here in the back office as a lowly bookkeeper toiling away.
Sure.
Yeah.
Likely story. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Right? Let's just touch base on consensus.
Oh.
This year, past years,
Would you believe I've been to so many conferences, 6 a year at least. For 6 years, I'd never been to consensus before. And some of it was timing, time of year, location. And finally went, it is incredible. It's been a really wonderful experience. First off, well curated, well put on, like the execution. And it's not easy, right? I'm a big fan of logistics. I always wonder, how did the airlines do it? Well, they mostly do it. But this has been really well executed. Ready coffee, which is really important. But attendees, seeing people I didn't expect to see. Hey, I ran into Pomp. I mean, there's just all sorts of folks that from my background at least, come up, slap me on the back, get a hug. I saw an old friend from compliance at FTX, and I hadn't seen her in over a year. It's great to get a hug out. She's doing well. She was afraid her career was over, what have you, but it was really great to see her. So I think, getting the opportunity to see all these folks again and meet some new people, have a coffee with Blockvilles, meet up with Key Rock. These are all sort of market making, OTC type desks. And so I can keep going names because there's so many of them that are here. It's really great to see them. Not everyone has a booth, right? Some folks we have a large booth. All our folks are there to answer questions, but there's also a lot of people roaming the floor. I thought the attendees really high quality, and let's not forget about the parties. So my calendar, I don't know about everyone else's, it's jammed. You have all this overlap and stuff. There's barbecue everywhere. There's beer everywhere. It goes late into the night. Make sure you get back early and get some sleep, because the next day is going to be another 12-hour marathon on your feet. Great talks, great presenters. My friend Ryan Selkis is up there. Never fails to give his opinion, which I enjoy. He's a bald brother.
And it keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
You've got a 32-member governing council, enterprise organizations, I believe, right. Primarily. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that. What kind of advantages does that give you guys? What does that open up or make possible?
Right, and what disadvantages? Because there is no perfect network, right? Although we're close. Of course.
I may be the most modest man you'll ever meet.
Yeah, yes, the dollar is the best horse in the glue factory. So, our charter accepts up to 39. We have 32. Most recently, BitGo. So crypto native, right? Many of them are not, right? Dell, Google, IBM, Nomura Bank, Standard Chartered Bank. Mondelez I had mentioned earlier or later, but they are. They're all mostly public companies, right? There's Swirls, that's a development marketing team and they're on the governing council as well, and that's where Manson Lehman are, and they're a large organization really propelling the ecosystem forward. But all these validators, they do the critical job, right? They are the network. Now, pros, you'd say, well, institutions can feel very, very comfortable, right? If they're an HBAR ETF, that none of these transactions are going to get validated and rewards are going to go to OFAC states. Now that's although I'm a bit of a Bitcoin maxi libertarian, I'll just throw that out there, folks. Own it, right? I'm not really anymore, because I'm working this protocol and I believe in it. I think there's a particular niche for this, just like they all have their special features, right? Zcash and Monero have theirs, for example. but the validators, provide a certainty around the fact that, the finality is there, meaning these are public companies primarily, and they're not going to, quote, mess around. They have strict compliance departments, right? They're publicly traded. So it gives, I think, a certain assurance around the operational quality of the network. You know who the node runners are, bottom line. Now, on the flip side, people say, well, that's a semi-permissioned state. The pure idea of Bitcoin is this completely decentralized way to transfer value digitally. And no one controls it. Heck, even I run a few miners. It's not economic, but I want to support the ecosystem and the network. And I urge everyone out there, all the listeners, right? Can you run a node? Can you run a miner? It's not going to be economic, but if you hold Bitcoin, if you believe in it that strongly, get on the printing press and make the stamps for the post office. Back to that analogy. The other thing is, we could talk about OFAC for a moment, right? Office of Foreign Asset Control, part of the Treasury Department, right? North Korea, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba. Am I missing anyone? Russia, a bit, right? There's a way to flex the U.S. sovereignty and political muscle in defense of the petrodollar through the OFAC policies that say these entities are going to be banned from being part of the economic, hegemony of the U.S. Now, has it benefited us? We're sitting here at Consensus, seeing Cybertrucks drive around. It's probably benefited us, right? But there's times that kind of censorship doesn't. And so, even with ETH, right, there's enough OFAC control through the MEV, management. And sorry, that's a little technical, right? But through the order processing, order processing. I sound like I'm back in manufacturing. Through the
Tell people a little. What does MEV stand for? What is all this stuff?
What is all this gobbledygook? Well, when transactions get broadcast to the network, so let's get basic on it. Transactions get broadcast. I want to send you a token, right? That has to get confirmed by the network, right? And they order the transactions as well. So they're not all going in simultaneously. There's a stacking, so to speak. So the ordering that transactions can actually, so there's two pieces. One is where the transactions coming from, where are they going to? Right now, Tornado Cash has been sanctioned by the Treasury Department. So a majority of the ETH validation in the network will not accept transactions for Tornado Cash. So there's a form of censorship occurring. The same pressure exists on the Bitcoin network, on all the networks, right? But some of them are put us forward as their stamp is that they're censorship resistant. So there's a lot of question around what the future of that holds. And then we can talk about manipulation of the order processing, meaning when you submit transactions, they're ordered. Well, there's ways to take financial advantage of that ordering, to slip in buys and sells ahead, to sort of eke out a little bit of gains. And it's complex and technical, but I can say that one thing about our chain, and it's not even a chain, but one thing about Hedera Hashgraph, it is what they call MEV resistant. You cannot manipulate the ordering of transactions to financial benefit. Now, folks in the audience, that's pretty technical, but if you've seen Dumb Money and you see Ken Griffin and you understand what payment for order flow is, you can't do that with us. And so is that an advantage? Yes. Does every chain have its sort of compromise? It does. I just like ours the most.
As you should.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Blockchain Association.
So Blockchain Association is I would call it a lobbying group, but that's probably too strong a word in terms of an industry organization that has its own staff. Christian Smith runs it as the CEO. Great team. I love those folks. I've become close to them personally over the years by attending events and actually, being a member, obviously. The HBAR Foundation is a member. But it engages Hill staff as well as senators, representatives, and other folks on the Hill directly to help facilitate understanding of our ecosystem. So it's not to say, hey, and I don't want to speak for the Blockchain Association, I'll speak as a member how I perceive it, and that is that they educate, first of all. What is this technology? What can it do? How will it benefit the average US person, constituents, people who vote, and people who don't vote, children who are going to grow up with this technology in their pocket? And so I feel very strongly about the work they do and others in the space, like the Digital Chamber of Commerce, Global DCA. All these groups, they're seeking to educate regulators. And we've seen a big sea change just in the last couple of weeks. ETH ETF chances were like 10% it was going to pass. And overnight, it flipped to 90%. I won't delve into some of the names and other things that are going, all the teams, keep it purple here in friendly interview land. But there's enough folks that are in this space now. It used to be 1%. Now supposedly like 20% of US people might have exposure to it. I don't know. That's the beauty of the ETFs. They've really fully integrated this technology into the economic infrastructure into the economic system. Even if you don't really own, when you have you hold a share in ETF, it's an IOU. You're not really self-custodying. That's okay. At least they're touching it a little bit. But there's been sea change in the regulatory atmosphere of FIT 21. This particular bill looks like it could pass. Well, it won't pass, but it's gotten through the House. Won't get through the Senate. It's going to get rejiggered. But still, the fact that it's advancing, the fact that there are senators here at Consensus, which is actually very exciting. A Republican and a Democrat tonight. The Blockchain Association is hosting a fundraiser, and I'll go to both and sort of overlap because we need help from both sides of the aisle. We need to make sure that this technology and the talent behind it don't continue to migrate offshore. Right? A year ago, I tell you, you were crazy to launch a project here. Not like the ICO days of 2017, right? You would definitely be offshore. But now, with things shifting and a little support on both sides of the aisle, I think we could keep this technology here. I mean, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, name all the four, Netflix, they're here, right? But we don't want the next generation of companies to go offshore because our regulatory environment is so unfriendly. So, helping the regulators craft it, helping the legislature understand it, and craft the right kind of policies, we can continue to see this ecosystem thrive and grow.
Wonderful. Josh, thanks so much.
Man, thanks for having me. Okay.